Hello all, welcome back to Time to Dice Character Creation, where we make your very fictional characters in Pathfinder Starfinder 2nd Edition. Today, we're covering Vax'ildan from the Legends of Vox Machina. This show is amazing, and the characters feel like they belong in a TTRPG setting. Wait a second. Yeah, fans of the show probably know that the characters originally came from Critical Role's first campaign in Dungeons & Dragons, and more dedicated fans might even know that the characters actually started out as Pathfinder 1st Edition characters before being converted to 5e when the group decided to stream their games. And truly dedicated fans might know that those characters were converted from D&D 4th Edition characters used for a one-shot played for Liam's birthday. So today, we're completing the pendulum swing and bringing these characters back to the Pathfinder side, this time in 2nd Edition. This build will more heavily lean into the characters that we see in Legends of Vox Machina animated series, but we will use the live play versions of the characters to fill in gaps and help us cover the late game. So beware of spoilers, and without further ado, let's get started. So what do we need to make the champion of the Raven Queen? Well, at first glance, Vax looks like everyone's first rogue character, diving into combat with a tried and true combo, dagger, into dagger, into dagger. So we definitely need to make sure that we can use the mini sword. Next, partially due to being transferred through so many different game systems, Vax benefits from a truly insane movement speed. In the campaign, this came from his Boots of Speed, and in the show, it's granted for him by the Deathwalker's Ward. But we're going to skip the middleman and make that speed a baked-in part of the build. And finally, being the champion of the Raven Queen comes with its own perks. Namely, a pair of jet black wings let you take that speed to the skies. Vax is a half-elf, but his abilities lean a bit more toward the elven side of the spectrum, so we'll use the elf as our base ancestry, while using the custom mixed heritage to reflect our human side. This leaves us a bit on the frail side, with only 6 turning hit points. We're medium size and get an attribute boost to dexterity, intelligence, and charisma at the cost of a constitution flaw. We also get a 30-foot movement speed, letting us outpace the competition, and low light vision. The criminal background is the perfect fit for Vax, giving us a boost to dexterity and intelligence, as well as a training in both stealth and underworld lore, perfect for knowing where the nearest branch of the clasp is. We also get experienced smuggler, which makes us adept at sneaking items past watchful eyes. When the GM rolls a secret stealth check to see if a passive observer notices a small item that we've concealed, they use the higher of the number rolled or 10. This increases to 15 once we reach Master in Stealth, and once we reach Legendary Proficiency, we automatically succeed, no roll needed. No matter how you slice it, Vax is a rogue, so we'll keep that tradition strong. However, we will be adding a bit of spice by taking the Avenger class archetype for a touch of divine flair. Now, canonically, Vax's divine entanglement came later in the story, but since the class archetypes can't be taken after level 1, we're bending the rules a little here. As an Avenger, we get 8 hit points per level and expert proficiency in perception. Our reflex and will saves are both also at expert, while our fortitude lags behind at only trained. Being a rogue, we get more than our fair share of skills. Intimidation, religion, and stealth come standard with all Avengers, but we'll also pick up acrobatics for our fancy footwork, diplomacy for our time spent among elven nobility, society for our various criminal connections, survival for tracking our quarry, thievery for lockpicking, and nature for tricks that we picked up from both our sister and our wife. And finally, we get our deity's divine skill. We're using Pharasma as a closest stand-in for the Raven Queen, which gives us training in medicine, meaning we can both give life and take it. We also get training in all simple martial weapons, and we can wear up to medium armor. For our attribute scores, strength comes in at a +2. Doesn't do as much good to throw 100 daggers if they can't do any real damage. Dexterity is at a +4. Throwing daggers, dodging attacks, pulling off aerial somersaults, just about all of Vax's favorite things are dexterity based. Constitution is at -1. You can't be good at everything, and Vax's weak point has always been taking hits. Intelligence is at a +2. We're playing a jack of all trades, which means we need a wide array of skills. And finally, wisdom and charisma are both at +1, perfect for figuring out what makes people tick, and then using that against them. Most rogues pick a rogue's racket at level 1, but since we're going with the Avenger rogue, we're locked in to the Avenger racket. This gives us training up to medium armor, though with our sky-high dex score, we won't be taking advantage of this much. More importantly, it grants us early access to the critical specialization effect of our deity's favored weapon. Most rogues have to wait until level 5 to get this, but we get it right out of the gate. That means when we crit with our dagger, the target takes 1d6 persistent bleed damage. Of course, as a rogue, we also get sneak attack, which allows us to deal extra precision damage whenever we strike an off-guard target. Unlike in 5e, we can apply this extra damage to every qualifying attack we make, not just the first one in each round. Most rogues also get surprise attack at level 1, but as Avengers, we instead get hunt prey, letting us designate a creature that we can see or are tracking as our prey. We gain a +2 circumstance bonus on perception checks when seeking our prey, and a +2 bonus on survival checks when tracking it. We also ignore the penalty for making ranged attacks within the second range increment against that creature, giving us an extra 10-foot reach on all of our thrown daggers. Whether you want to flavor this as the clasp giving you your next mark, or the Raven Queen telling you to track down the God of Secrets, Vax is usually hunting someone down. For our level 1 class feat, we'll be taking Trap Finder. Vax is always ahead of the party, checking for traps after all. This gives us a +1 bonus to find, resist, and avoid traps, and we get a secret perception check to detect them even if we're not actively searching. We can even disarm traps that normally require 1 level proficiency higher than we currently have. And finally, what's a rogue without a little bit of pickpocketing? The pickpocket skill feat lets us steal or palm closely guarded items without the usual -5 penalty. At level 2, we pick up the Avenger Dedication, granting us a +1 status bonus that saves against divine spells and spirit damage. And in towns with a church devoted to our deity, we can use religion to coerce, gather information, or track by drawing insight from the local faithful. And we don't even have to drown ourselves in a pool of blood to get that ability, so that's a win. We also gain Slippery Prey, which reduces the multiple attack penalty that we take from repeated escape attempts within the same turn. Grapples, manacles, jail cells, if you can name it, Vax has probably escaped from it. Level 3 rogues gain Deny Advantage, which means we are off guard against hidden, undetected, or flanking creatures of our level or lower, including those using surprise attack. However, enemies can still aid their allies in flanking us, so it's not complete immunity. We also pick up the Fleet General feat, giving us an extra 5 foot of movement speed on all of our stride actions, letting us stay 1 step ahead of our sister, literally. Finally, we grab the Subtle Theft skill feat. Whenever we successfully steal an object, other creatures take a -2 circumstance penalty to their perception DCs to notice. And if we first grant a diversion, a single palm an object or steal action won't automatically end their undetected condition. At level 4, we pick up the Twin Takedown class feat. For a single action, we make 2 strikes against our hunted prey, each with a different melee weapon. If they both hit the same target, we combine their damage when applying resistances to weaknesses. Each strike uses our normal multiple attack penalty, so accuracy still matters, but the potential payoff is huge. Remember, even though the feat requires you to be wielding melee weapons, it doesn't say that you have to make melee strikes, so it seems that you could use these to throw your daggers. Although, I'm not sure that's the intention. I'd allow it at my game, but make sure to run it by your GM. We also pick up the Streetwise skill feat, letting us use our Society modifier instead of Diplomacy when gathering information. In settlements we frequent, we can also use Society to recall knowledge and instantly learn similar details. In Vax's line of work, the streets often know more than scholars. At level 5, we gain Weapon Tricks, which improves our weapon proficiency and gets us access to critical specialization effects for all agile finesse weapons, rather than just their deity-specific weapon. Too bad we don't really use anything other than daggers, but hey, it's a thought that counts. For our Ancestry feat, we get Defiance unto Death. If we would start our turn confused, controlled, or fleeing due to a failed will save, we can attempt a second will save against the same DC, and on a success we become paralyzed until our next turn, instead of acting against our will. Vax isn't one to fall for the same trick twice, and he's already had his brush with mind control thanks to the Briarwoods. Finally, we grab the Wary Disarm skill feat. If we trigger a device or trap while we are attempting to disarm it, we gain a +2 circumstance bonus to our AC or saving throw against that specific triggered effect. This bonus doesn't apply to any follow-up actions like additional attacks from a complex trap, but it might just save your life in the moment. At level 6, we begin doing our matron's bidding with the Zealous Inevitability feat. When we successfully strike with our deity's favorite weapon, the target of that attack becomes doomed 1 or increases doomed value by 1, as the Raven Queen calls them to her domain. While doomed in this way, the target takes a status penalty to saves against divine spells equal to its doomed value, setting Pike up for a perfectly powerful follow-up shot. If a creature reaches doomed 4, they would usually just die outright, but in this case, they get a will save equal to our class DC to avoid the increase, preventing us from cheesing boss fights with 4 basic strikes. We also pick up the Shadow Mark skill feat. When we avoid notice while shadowing a target, that target takes a -2 circumstance penalty to their perception DC. Remember, if we start an encounter while shadowing them, they take this same penalty to their initiative roll, making us all the more likely to get the drop on them. At level 7, rogues gain several key upgrades: Perception Mastery, Weapon Specialization, and Evasive Reflexes, bumping our reflex save proficiency up to Master, and allowing us to treat all successful reflex saves as critical successes, making us even harder to pin down. We also take the Kip Up skill feat, which lets us stand up from prone as a free action that doesn't trigger reactions or other effects tied to movement. Finally, we grab Incredible Initiative, granting us a +2 circumstance bonus to initiative rolls, helping us act first and eliminate threats before they even know we're there. At level 8, we pick up Quick Draw, to draw a weapon and strike in the same action. This is useful for the player who likes to throw their daggers and doesn't want to waste actions, constantly pulling out new ones, at least until you spring for a returning rune. For our skill feat for this level, we'll pick up Tumbling Theft, meaning if we ever critically succeed in an acrobatics attempt to tumble through an enemy space, we can immediately use our reaction to attempt to steal something from that enemy with a +1 circumstance bonus. At level 9, rogues gain Rogue's Resilience, which increases our Fortitude save proficiency to Expert and allows us to treat all successful Fortitude saves as critical successes. and Debilitating Strike, which adds an extra effect to all of our sneak attacks to do damage. We can choose to either enfeeble a target for a round, or reduce their speed by 10 feet for the same duration. Not everything needs to be about raw damage. Sometimes it's better to debuff a foe and let Grog handle the finishing blow. The Swift Sneak skill feat lets us move at our full speed while sneaking, keeping Vax fast and stealthy. And finally, we take the multi-talented Ancestry feat, allowing the champion of the Raven Queen to actually be a champion. Not that it helps us much at the moment, aside from granting us training in heavy armor, which, if we weren't using the medium armor, you can bet we're not using the heavy armor. The Shadow of Death class feat at level 10 empowers our dagger strikes, so that any strike we make against a doomed creature gains the death trait, instantly killing it if we reduce it to 0 hit points, and prevents it from being healed. Creatures slain like this can't be contacted, resurrected, or turned into undead, as we shepherd their souls to their final destination. We also pick up the Foil Senses skill feat, allowing us to hide even from creatures with special senses like scent. At level 11, we get Rogue's Expertise to increase our class DC, Toughness to increase our hit points and reduce our DC of recovery checks, and Quick Unlock to pick a lock with 1 action rather than 2. Devout Blessing at level 12 grants us the Blessing of the Devoted Champion feature. We choose the Blessing of Swiftness, giving us a permanent 5-foot status bonus to our speeds. In addition, allies within 15 feet of us gain a +2 status bonus to their defenses against reactions triggered by movement. We also get the Catfall skill feat, reducing the fall damage that we take if someone manages to knock us out of the sky. Oh wait, we still can't get to the sky yet. At level 13, we can take to the skies with the Aeromancer feat, allowing us to cast Fly once per day, giving us a fly speed equal to our land speed for 5 glorious minutes, which should be more than enough time to make a dramatic entrance. Or exit if things get rough. This level also grants us several major class upgrades: Perception Mastery, Light Armor Expertise, and Master Tricks. And finally, Greater Rogue's Reflexes not only increases our reflex save proficiency to Legendary, but now critically failed reflex saves become regular failures, and we only take half damage from failed reflex saves, making Vax practically untouchable. Finally, we get the Eyes of the City skill feat, letting us track targets in urban areas simply by talking to locals. Whether using diplomacy or society, Vax always knows who to ask, and how to ask it without raising suspicion. At level 14, we get the class feat Slay, which lets us spend 2 actions to make a strike against the target. On a hit, that target takes an extra 4d6 precision damage, and must attempt a basic fortitude save against their class DC. If they critically fail that fortitude save, they die. Not nearly as flashy, but just as fun, is the Dirty Trick skill feat, allowing us to make a thievery check against the target's reflex DC. On a critical success, the target becomes Clumsy 1 until they use an interact action to end the effect. On a regular success, they're still Clumsy 1, but only for a round. And if we manage to bungle and get a critical failure, our attempt backfires and we end up falling prone. At level 15, rogues get double debilitation, so we no longer have to waste time at the table choosing whether to slow a foe down or enfeeble them. We can just do both. Greater Weapon Specialization increases our damage output, making every strike a little bit deadlier. Die Hard boosts their resilience, letting us survive to dying 5 instead of dying 4. And finally, the Rolling Landing skill feat. With this skill feat, if we fall and take no damage, we can use the reaction to stride up to our full speed without triggering reactions, helping us land gracefully and stay mobile. At level 16, we gain Devout Magic, allowing us to pick up the Lay on Hands focus spell. This lets us heal our allies, or damage the undead that we're called to destroy. We also reinforce our healed allies, granting them a +2 status bonus to their AC for 1 round. Additionally, we pick up Legendary Sneak, letting us use stealth even without cover or concealment, making us a ghost in just about any environment. At level 17, we pick up Venge Ally. When we're within 30 feet of a creature with a dying condition, we can roll our next strike's attack roll twice and take the better result. Vax is scary on a good day. You do not want to see him after you mess with his friends. We also get Agile Mind at this level, increasing our will save proficiency, and turning successful will saves into critical successes, making us mentally as sharp as we are quick. And finally, Legendary Thief lets us pull off implausible heists that only make sense in the wild world of fantasy TTRPGs. Seriously, with this feat, we can literally steal the pants off of someone. At level 18, we gain Sneak Adapt, which means that as long as we don't critically fail a stealth check, we treat the result as a success or better. With this feat, slipping into the shadows is practically second nature. We also pick up Tumbling Teamwork. When we use acrobatics to move through an opponent's space, all allies adjacent to that opponent can immediately use their reaction to step. The ally must end their step still adjacent to the target we tumbled through though, so rather than using this to escape, it's more for getting out of being flanked or setting up flanking for yourself. At level 19, Vax gains Light Armor Mastery and Master Strike, making him even deadlier. When we hit an off-guard enemy and deal damage, that target must immediately succeed at a fortitude save against our class DC, or suffer serious consequences. On a critical success, the enemy manages to shake it off, but on a regular success, they're automatically enfeebled 2 until the end of our next turn. And on a failure, they're paralyzed for 4 rounds. Sounds pretty bad, right? Well, wait till you hear this. On a critical failure, we get to choose whether they remain paralyzed for 4 rounds, are knocked unconscious for 2 hours, or are instantly killed. Definitely not a choice you want to give to the Angel of Death. Vax also gains the Divine Guidance skill feat, allowing us to spend time studying our deity's sacred texts. By making a successful religion check after 10 minutes of contemplation, we uncover useful lessons or perspectives that might help us solve our problem. Finally, with the Oxima's Awakening feat, we add a bit of druidic magic to our arsenal, granting us 2 cantrips. Tanglevine lets us make a spell attack to immobilize or slow an enemy, and Timber creates a falling tree that deals area bludgeoning damage within a 15-foot line, and can dazzle foes if they critically fail their fortitude save. We also get the first rank spell, Fleet Step, granting us a significant 30-foot speed boost for an entire minute, and the second rank spell, Blur, which lets us move so fast that we gain concealment for the duration, giving all attacks against us a 20-foot mischance. At this point, Vax is a lethal combination of Rogue Skill, Divine Insight, and Nature's Fury, but it gets even better at level 20, by picking up Hidden Paragon, an incredible feat that renders us invisible for a minute whenever we successfully hide or become hidden. This invisibility lasts even if we make hostile actions against the target within that time. To cap off this build, we get Aerobatics Master, granting us exceptional aerial grace. This feat gives us a +2 circumstance bonus to acrobatics checks to maneuver in flight, and lets us combine multiple maneuvers into a single action. Vax was a bit of a daredevil before he got Divine Flight. Put him in the air, and there's no stopping him. And that wraps up our Pathfinder 2e build for Vax'ildan, Champion of the Raven Queen. Fast, deadly, and now capable of delivering divine justice from the skies. Whether you're stalking from the shadows, flying into danger, or cutting down foes with precision and purpose, this version of Vax brings all the flair and ferocity you'd expect from the voice of fate. If you enjoy this build, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us which character you'd like to see next. And until next time, keep rolling high, and we'll catch you in the next one.